There you go, Ula.
Okay. First of all, the tour to Norway, I talked about Global Women for Peace and of course against NATO, and there were about 60 people. And women, WILPF in Norway promised to send out the declaration in order for us to get more signatures. I'm quite disappointed because I had a look at the website, and there hasn't been any additional signatures for weeks. So we really have to put a bit of fire onto that part. But I hope that everybody will take responsibility and try to get more signatures. The declaration has been updated so that it's now heading for Washington, and the texts are updated. And in Hiroshima,
excuse me, Ula, and you were talking about Hiroshima. We've got declaration on the agenda after, but yeah,
okay,
let's hear about
good.
Japan.
Yeah, good. The Hiroshima and Nagasaki events were absolutely impressive. There were about 2,000 people in a big hall, and we had in Hiroshima a smaller event with some 100 people, and then later in Nagasaki much more. And in every speech that I had 4 different speeches. I took up NATO, and it seems that in the Asia Pacific area, and if Cora comes on later on, she was there too. She can also confirm that they are starting to talk about NATO. And the women's organization I was invited by, I were really efficient and very energetic. And I hope that we can have a cooperation with them in the future. Maybe first with some kind of webinars where we get to know each other, but that we can plan on the next meeting, maybe how we can have again these regional webinars where we connect people. And I highly recommend that if anybody can either persuade the women's organization in Japan to be invited, because I was invited by them. I highly recommend to go because it gives a lot of energy, and I got a good contact with a South Korean young girl, with a Vietnamese young girl, and then from Marshall Islands was the fantastic Abaka, who Cora knows well. So we go on building networks, and that was my main purpose of going there. So that was it shortly. Thank you.
Thanks. That sounds great. Was it GNCO, the organization that sponsored you?
Yes.
Do makeup and
yes, they finance themselves by selling makeup, and that was quite fascinating. So they have a good business model.
Mm-hmm. They brought me to Japan in 2005. I appreciate that.
Yeah, right.
Any questions for Ula on the trips? Okay, then. Ula, now tell us about update us on the declaration, please. Right now we have 970 signatures.
Yeah, and that's very little, and it hasn't been going up for weeks. But of course, people have been on leave and summer vacations and so on. But we have to start really pushing it very hard in our networks. And also, of course, lifting up that also men can sign. Maybe, I don't know if at this moment it would be appropriate to take up the personal mailing list I'm preparing. You have all got an invitation to come onto a list where your name, your organization, and your email can be seen, and it's only for those who are on the list, because we need these personal contacts if we plan webinars and regional. If Italy wants to arrange something but want to invite somebody from Japan, it's important that you have the contact. So I hope that you send me your yes or no for the personal list. And for the declaration, we will have it soon in Vietnamese language and in South Korean and hopefully in Nepali. And Cora has translated it into Filipino, which is very great. And we could maybe on the front page, when you open the website, there could be the flags of the different languages, and not when you have opened the declaration, because now when I was in Japan, I understand how much the alphabet, the writing is important, so that you see it without having to read the English letters. But we can discuss that with Emily later.
Thanks. Teresa?
Thank you.
Well, I think getting close to 1,000 signatures is actually pretty good. And what I would like for us to do is to be a little bit more deliberate in our asking. When I was on the UN Decade Reparations No to NATO tour, I did pass out the declaration to everyone at all the meetings, and I encourage people to sign. And I've heard from at least a couple of people who said they signed. So I will focus as the Southern Anti-Racism Network on our network across the U.S. South to get people to continue to sign on to the declaration. But I think each organization should set a goal to get so many people signed on, whether you're in Finland, whether you're in Italy, or wherever you are. I think that we will continue to do a pretty good job of getting signers in the United States, because when I look at the list, a significant number of signers are in the United States. And I think we have to start looking at other countries where there are a low number of signers, so that we're deliberate in making sure that there are signers in all of the NATO countries big time. So especially Finland and Sweden, my heart still breaks every time I think about the fact that they signed on to NATO. So increasing the number of signers in those countries, in particular, Ulla, would be a real good thing. Thank you.
Thanks. Leah?
Yes, about the updating of the declarations. So there are still the Portuguese and Estonian languages that I have been checked with those persons who first translated the declaration, that unfortunately now when we have updated it, I haven't got any information from them, despite that I have sent them several reminders. So if someone of you now webs here do have contacts to Estonia or Portugal, so please inform me. Or if you yourself know those languages, we could try to update these declarations for these.
Thanks, Leah. Any other comments about the declaration? Let's all take seriously Teresa's advice to really push it in our organizations and in the networks in our countries, especially those NATO countries. So one of the reasons we've got a longer agenda today is a lot of issues came up in our last meeting that we said we were going to talk about today at our next meeting. One of those was communications. I don't know who's the point person on this, but improving communications or issues around communications, who can frame this topic? We have 10 minutes for it. Are you concerned about communications? Do you have recommendations about communications?
Could I comment?
Go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, there has been wishes that we would have WhatsApp or Twitter or whatever. And I was asked to ask for mobile numbers now when we make up the list of those who want to be personally seen on a list with all their information. And I have got some phone numbers. Some people say they don't have such phones that they can be on WhatsApp or Twitter or whatever. And then I got a message from Poland, I think it was, saying that she would prefer that it wouldn't be WhatsApp because that is very easy to trace by all the, what shall I say, the ones who want to control us. And she said that Telegram or Signal could be a good alternative. But since I am also one of those fossil phone people, I'm not able to do this thing. So we have to find somebody who puts up this Telegram or Signal, or in worst case scenario, WhatsApp. For that, we need a person. So if there's anybody here that could start this way of communication when I have got enough numbers. I haven't yet, because I'm still pushing for people to tell me if they want to be on the personal list or not. So
Okay.
we need somebody to do it.
Thanks, Ulla. I'm still trying to figure out Signal after over a year. Patricia and then Teresa.
Yes, I have some friends in Portugal and in Brazil. So if Lea can send me the declaration in Portuguese, I can send to Portugal and to Brazil to collect more signature. And I promise after my holiday to restart of signature in Italy. Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Ada.
Teresa.
Well, I think the communication has to be organized in a way that we have some kind of coordinating council, so to speak, with representation from some of the partner organizations, particularly over this short-term period, and people will see clearly what I'm talking about when we get to the strategic planning proposal. But we need to be able to have discussions among ourselves, those of us who are the organizers and planners. And so, Code Pink, Veterans for Peace, Southern Anti-Racism Network, WILF, and the other groups that are definite partners, and all of the peace women throughout Europe who are listed currently as partners as we mobilize for July in DC in 2024. We really need a discussion list for people who are actual organizers on that. And the Southern Anti-Racism Network is fully committed to it through the tour we did recently and the follow-up we'll be doing. So I think in terms of communication, I hear Ulla and others about the list and not wanting a lot of chatter on the current listserv, but we need another list where those of us who are communicating around organizing, including getting signers for the declaration, a kind of organizers listserv so that we can communicate with each other. That would be my proposal for consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. Anyone know a lot about WhatsApp or Signal or the third thing Ulla mentioned? No one here.
Well,
right.
I'm on WhatsApp, and it is a way for people to communicate with folks in other countries. So I communicate with people in Africa and around the world through WhatsApp. They seem to prefer that. And so I don't use it that much, but I find it useful just for one-on-one and small group communication. But I don't see it something that we should be using as Global Women for Peace United Against NATO. I don't see what use we would get out of WhatsApp. I think we need to build our presence on Facebook and on Twitter, which is now called X. We need to build our presence on those platforms so that we can reach millions of people about what we're doing. That kind of communication for mass movement organizing makes sense. But WhatsApp is just a way for friends and small groups to communicate. But X, which used to be Twitter, and Facebook are the places where you could do the mass movement organizing. Over.
Marguerite, and then Ula. And then we'll be done with this issue. Marguerite, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Margaret.
Thank you very much. You can listen? You can hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. I would like to support Teresa. I think it's good to have the platforms which are used in our world, and that's mainly in the Western world is Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and that. But I think we need more. We don't need only the platform, we need training. And I would advise maybe we could get somebody who can train us to use this. Thank you.
I would like to speak, but I don't know how to put my hand up. I'm on my phone. I'm on holidays. So can you just add me to the list? It's Kim.
Kim, okay, Skevi, and then Kim, and then Ula.
Yeah, I think Skevi was
Skevi
first.
next,
Yeah.
because she hasn't spoken yet.
Sorry.
Shall I speak?
Yes.
George, you gave me the floor. I just wanted to add of what we were talking until now. And I believe we repeat the same discussion as according to the notes from the July meeting that we had. From what is written in these notes, I think we have to implement this decision. And I agree with Margaret that if we don't know any kind of the social media, how to use it, for example, we have to try each one of us to learn a few of these. For example, the WhatsApp, for example, it would be very easy to communicate with WhatsApp. But I think it is important to have a newsletter. I know that we need a volunteer with a lot of effort and time to work. So all these messages that we receive by email and articles, very useful, very important, to be publicized or to elaborate or work on these articles and prepare some statement of our own as a group. Otherwise, we will not manage to continue as strong as we were working until now. And about the declaration, yes, one is the update and to push our organizations to have more signatures. But it is important, I didn't notice actually, maybe it is publicized. You mentioned it before, but I don't see it again. That we are planning to send this declaration to these many organizations, United Nations and other entities that we decided we're discussing that we should send it or find ways. And we can publicize these actions that they don't need much work from us. They don't need money to travel to United Nations. It would be very nice, of course, if we had somebody in New York where they can handle this declaration to United Nations or to other entities, again, in various parts of the world, especially in the African and the Asian region that we didn't have in Brussels many participants. Some ideas on this.
Yes, thanks for those ideas. We've got about 5 more minutes on this topic. We've got Kim, Ula, Ria, and Teresa. Kim?
Yes, sorry, I don't know how to activate my video on the phone. It's just I can't figure it out, but I figured out somehow. I found a speaking button, so here I am. I just wanted to say I don't use Facebook anymore. I read the book Surveillance Capitalism. I know about them spying on us all the time. And the collusion between governments and Facebook, and for knowing people's data. That's why Edward Snowden is in Russia right now, and that's why Julian Assange might not live. So I don't like the idea of using Facebook. I still use Twitter. I started with Signal. I don't use it very often, but it's exactly like WhatsApp. It's just so new that it doesn't have very wide use yet. So I wish we could use Signal at least, because I don't want to share everything with the CIA. So that's my feeling as far as all this volunteer about. I think it's a great idea to do newsletter. I wish I could volunteer to do that, but I think I've already got my hands full with my little chapter. That's all I can handle. So I hope somebody comes forward. I think it's a great idea to have a newsletter. That's it.
Thanks, Kim. And yes, they get whatever they want in terms of surveillance. You don't think they got this tape? So we have Ria, Olga, Ula, Teresa. Go ahead, Ria.
Yes, thank you. Communication is very important and essential, especially with so many women from so many different countries and continents. I wonder if we cannot attract a younger person from, for instance, Wilf, who is keen on social media, maybe a communication expert or manager. That would be very helpful.
Thank you. Olga?
Yeah. Hi. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, nice. Also, I would like, I really like the idea with newsletter and work with social network, but also I would like to propose to think, maybe not now, but for future, about such kind of webinars and explain very basic ideas. For example, why the militarization of schools is bad. Or what is bad with NATO? Because especially for Russian speaking audience, maybe English speaking audience, because if I can speak about my environment, many people have zero information about everything. They are under militarization military propaganda, and they really don't understand that they use military definitions. They have a war in their head. So maybe this is for future, but we need very, very basic educational webinars to distribute our ideas, because video in maybe TikTok, for example, it's easy, or any kind of Facebook, for example, 1-2 minutes, but very concrete. And also what is important for me, we have no, sometimes it's complicated to understand that the struggle is a process. So it could be also very nice to have such kind of maybe video or such kind of motivators pictures to tell more about women who is struggling, because by my opinion we are very invisible now, and women voices are underground, and we have to work more how to get the public space. And this is my ideas, and yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, Olga. We're going to hear from Ula and then Teresa. Teresa, when you're done, or as you're closing your comments on communication, you're the first work group to report on Africa for 5 minutes on the work group. So Ula and then Teresa. Ula?
Yeah, I hope that after me, we could give a minute for Olga to present herself, because she hasn't been in the group before, and she's going to a tough struggle in Lithuania right now. So I hope she will get a possibility to present herself. But some things, I think a newsletter is a wonderful idea, but we need somebody to do it. And if there's somebody now who is ready to do it, please inform us. If not, we have to find one till the next meeting. About the United Nations and bringing the declaration on to governments and so on, that was actually the idea, to bring it after the Brussels event. But then we decided to prolong the whole signature campaign. So I would suggest that we are heading to Washington in July, and that would be a perfect situation to hand it over to the United Nations. We brought it to NATO headquarters this year, to NATO next year, and then we see if we close the declaration or if we take it on, and if we close it, we then send it out to all the governments and once again to NATO. So that would be my suggestion about the declaration. About signal and so on, I understand the fears that we have, and I would like to talk with Emily at the IPB. She's a young person, and I have learned that she can help us at least till July 2024 now. So she is available for us. And I could ask Emily about how it would work with Signal and what else was mentioned here that we could leave out, maybe at least WhatsApp. About the webinars, and Olga, we really hope that the working groups we have, which will hopefully present themselves. We have, Olga, a working group on the militarization of schools, and that every working group is starting to think of having webinars for their topics. And on top of that, I wish that we could initiate, and anybody can initiate the webinar, on the regions, on the regions. What is NATO in the Asia Pacific? And we had it in Brussels, but we have to go deeper into that issue. Thank you.
Thanks, Ulla. We can pause and recognize anyone who's here for the first time. Raise your hand and let's meet you. Is there anyone here for the first time? Well, we've got hands raised, but those are people who are speaking. We've got Teresa's next, then Ada, Magret, and Olga. Are you here for the first time? Introduce yourself, please.
Yeah. I'm first time in the Zooms because it was some situations when I want to be, but I was not able, but I'm here first time. Yes, my name is Olga Karachi. I am Belarusian. I am basically in Lithuania now, and I have very tough time because Lithuania is very militarization country with ultra-right wing government, and we work with also conscientious objectors from Belarus and other countries, and Lithuania recognize Belarusian conscientious objectors as a threat of national security of Lithuania. And now I'm a human rights defender who is helping such people also a threat of national security, but I have the humanitarian permit for residence, and I see some fantastic women who supported me in my campaign and in my struggle, and thank you very much. Yeah, I spoke about militarization of school just as example, and this is what is interesting for me for future to think how we can present our ideas for the wider audience. Because if we speak about Lithuania, this is only one voice. This is very militaristic voice of men, and a lot of very social and economical problems, and nobody speak about the problems with the militarization. So, and not only in Lithuania, in Latvia, for example, in Estonia, the same. I know that one very good woman from Russia in Estonia, she would like to participate, but she's afraid to be also a threat of national security or something like that. But by my opinion, we have to distribute much more information, what is happens, and fight and protect our ideas too. Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you very much for attention and for your solidarity.
Glad you're here, Olga. Welcome. So
George,
we're now.
Yanni Beckman is also new. Yanni Beckman.
Yanni, do you want to introduce yourself? Yanni, I don't see you. If you're muted, unmute and say hello.
Yes.
Ah, Yanni, you were one of the first.
Okay. I'm for the first time in this meeting. I'm on not. I am from an organization in Holland, Women and sustainable peace. But I'm speaking for my own, because we have to speak in our organization about NATO, etc., and all the other problems. We didn't speak yet, and I'm very curious. And 2 times a month, I made a newsletter for about 300 people in Holland. I'm from Holland, sorry. And if possible, I write also about the activities of this organization, your organization. So I'm very curious. So I am here as I want to listen, and I cannot speak a lot, not yet, perhaps
Okay.
after.
No
Thank
worries.
you very much.
No problem. Okay, so we have Margaret. Oh, Teresa, Margaret, Ada. Teresa?
Well, George, I think this is getting a bit far afield. I don't know what your time is for this item on the agenda, but I think we're running into the same problem of we had a lot of things on the agenda from last meeting that was put on this agenda with hopes of getting to a decision or a resolution. And on this issue of communication, it's really not communication, it's organization that we need to deal with in terms of how this group works. There are 25 people online of the 40 people that registered. It's overwhelmingly Europe that's represented. Very few of us who are of African descent or from the global South in general. And so I think that this group has to develop a level of coordination and organization that is inclusive, because peace cannot be won without the participation of people in the global South. And that is a fact which should not be in dispute. And so I will hold off on my further comments about this so-called issue of communication, because it's really about organization. We come here, everybody gets to speak, everybody gets to say their opinion, and then we walk away without a decision on which way forward. And I see that Emily is on the call, and I would appreciate hearing from Emily because the website should be our main vehicle for attracting people. It is where people can go to sign on to the declaration. Anything that we put out, we should be putting out the website to direct people to it. And if anybody is naive enough to think that you aren't being listened to, watched, or whatever, the CIA, the FBI, they don't have enough people to listen to all the stuff that they're listening to. But trust me, there are no secrets. And if you think that you not being on Facebook is keeping you away from being looked at, if you are a part of peace groups or any organizations that are challenging the status quo, you're already on the list. You're already on the list. So until you do something that rises to the level of being a terrorist, nothing much is going to happen to you. So those of us who are nonviolent, who are not involved in any violent stuff, nothing much is going to happen to us. They just know what we're doing, and they don't see us as being important. So I just want to say Facebook is a tool that I use to reach thousands of people, and it's a good tool for that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So George, I'll let you go on and call on the other people on the stack, but I would appreciate that at the end of this conversation, we would know which way forward we're going. And I really would like to hear from Emily. Over.
Okay, then. Emily, do you want to give us an update based on what you've heard?
Yeah, hi everybody. I hope everyone is well. And about the website, yeah, as I was telling Ulla, I'm trying to do my best. The thing is that IPB has a really is a really small team, and we have a lot of activities, as you may know, going on. So it's very hard for me, to be honest, to be like always like present for you the way that you probably need someone to be there. So my suggestion last time was to find someone else helping me with all these technology aspects, so we can be more fast and also more present, and also with the idea of next year with the NATO's anniversary, I guess there will be a lot of activities going on, and that's why I would support the idea of calling more young people or simply people that know a little bit how to work with technology or are willing to learn, so that we have more people behind that. For the website, until now, I managed everything that should be there. Is there, I think. But for the rest, I really recommend you to find people that can be there and managing, for example, the Facebook profile, the Instagram profile, the different WhatsApp or Signal group, because it's time demanding. And yeah, I think it's too much for just one person to do that. That's my idea. So it would be nice if you can think about, yeah, I know WILF has a lot of maybe younger people, I don't know, but if you happen to have more ideas, I can also then explain, for example, also the website. I can share the credential in order to be able to change something there. So we could proceed like that. I don't know if it's an idea that could be good for everybody.
So replacing Emily with someone else. Okay.
No, not replacing. I'm not saying I'm not here. I'm here. I'm just really, yeah.
You just want someone added. Okay, very good.
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Just trying to move through. Okay.
My goodness.
Margaret, Ada, Jean, Nancy.
George, I would like to also to speak, but I think you cannot, you cannot see my hand raised. I am Alessandra.
Yes, I can't see you, Alessandra. Sorry.
No, but the problem is that my name is linked to Paola Melchiorri, who is also a new one in this meeting. Can you arrange? I don't know how it happened, but Alessandra Mecozzi, when you see the case with the name Alessandra Mecozzi, is not me. Me is the picture.
I am in the video and I'm Paola Melchiorri, but when she speaks, it's Alessandra. So you cannot see me, you see her and hear me.
Okay. So do you have a recommendation around communications? I understand the mix up with the registration and the names.
Yeah.
That's not anything I can fix in the moment. We'll just have to bear through it today, and next meeting, let's make sure that the person whose name it is registered with their name. But do you have a recommendation for communications now?
No, if there is someone before me, okay, maybe others before me. I just wanted to say one thing, that is about the list that we have. The list is overcharged, in my opinion. I really can't follow everything, but we should divide what is strictly related with our activity as global Women United Against NATO from other materials, documents, exchange of opinions, and so on. I don't know if we can concentrate in another mail what is the materials and the documents and papers, and just exchange of information about our activity in the list Global Women Unite Against NATO, or we can put the material in the website if there is a help for Emily, or we can put material in the exchanges in the list of the working groups who are now, I suppose, like our working group, are now working. So I think this is, for me, is an important problem.
Okay,
And
thanks.
that's it.
We're now 6 minutes over on this topic. We don't have recommendations or resolution yet, and we've had a growing number of people that want to comment. So at this point, we've got Margaret, Jean, Nancy, Ula. And Ula, you'll have to be the last person. But we also need some kind of recommendation coming out of this, or we'll have continue it forward, which is not a good thing. Margaret?
Yeah, thank you. You can hear me. I'm coming back to the declaration and how to continue with the declaration. There was a question about the UNO, but I think it would be wise to use the BRICS declaration now. It's very fine declaration. I read it all, 94 articles inside. And there are a lot of texts, BRICS, which we can use for a letter to this BRICS and to congratulate and to thank you for this declaration and to attach our declaration and ask if they could use it for UN General Assembly, because these BRICS states are creating a new area of politics in UNO, and I think it would be wise to have them at our side. Thank you.
Thanks. Jean?
Yes. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes,
Oh,
we
good.
can hear you.
Excellent. I think this is my second time, so I just introduce myself very quickly. I'm a journalist, I'm Italian, and I'm a member of Comitato No Guerra No NATO, which means No War, No NATO Committee. We have a program on an independent TV called Bio Blue, and every Friday we try to give international news. I mean, the real ones, what normally, the media don't give. I suggest, for example, that we or you open a chat line on Telegram. So there's going to be a difference. I mean, if you want to chat, discuss matters, you can do it on Telegram, and all the necessary news can pass on WhatsApp. This is one proposal. For as far as communication, I'll try to help as much as I can. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Nancy and then Ula.
Thank you. I wanted to ask Emily if among her a group of colleagues, she might have someone she could talk over assisting our group and adding some assistance for her at IPB with our group. I think that might be a way to see if we could recruit somebody. Emily, is that a possibility?
Looks like she's shaking her head no.
Yeah, I think I don't really think this is a possibility. I don't know. One of our colleagues is going to end her period with us in a couple of weeks from now. We are still in the recruiting process, and we are also kind of behind. So I think we will be less people than now working for the next month. So I'm so sorry, but it's really, really a struggle for our office too at this point. So that's why I'm suggesting if you have other people that can join, would be great. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we are already in our maximum capacity. Yeah.
Okay. Bummer. Ula?
Yeah, I return to that, Emily. I think we should try together, you and me, to find the young ones, or not you finding them, but I could suggest Margaret Engel from New York. She's a very young girl, was with me in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Maybe she could help. We have Ali MacDonald in Canada. Maybe she could help. And we have to find somebody from Europe. So any suggestions which you have from Italy or so on, please send them to Emily and me. And if we could form a group of, let's say, 5 persons around you with thinking about the Signal, eventually the Facebook, or what Jenny from Italy was saying, we could maybe cover that chapter with communication, but we still have the problem with the newsletter, and we should have to find somebody who could produce a newsletter on basis of really useful articles which we can use in our work. And it doesn't have to be any fancy. It could just be a newsletter with a headline, and then we send in very, very useful articles which can be opened in that newsletter. And maybe that newsletter could be published on the website as an easy work. What do you think, Emily? To produce a monthly newsletter or weekly or 2-week or whatever on the website.
If it's just to publish material, it's not a problem, because it's not that difficult to publish material on the website. But yeah, we need to find someone that collect everything and make it together as a file or something. Yeah.
But if you don't send it, it's not a newsletter. A newsletter has to be sent out to a mailing list. You just can't post it on the website.
So a newsletter, go ahead, Ula.
So you think, where should we then publish the newsletter? Should we just give the link to the newsletter on our Rise Up list?
Yeah, you could make it through Rise Up, couldn't you? Oh no, that's this list. I don't know. I because of World Beyond War, I use the Action Network. I have it access for my little chapter, and I do my newsletters that way. But
okay, Simri, could we talk about that together with Emily?
That sounds like a good idea.
If Emily wants to put our heads together, we could talk about that. We could have a separate meeting if she wants.
Okay.
Emily, are you ready for that? Or is it too much for you, Emily?
I'm so sorry. I don't think I can handle it really. Already. I don't know how to do it.
Anybody else than Simri who has some kind of a capacity on newsletters?
So Ula, it's you and
Tim
Simri working on newsletter and identifying someone to help Emily. So you're walking away with that assignment. Lucky you. So now we're going to hear from the working groups. I'm going to read the order so that you'll know to prepare yours. There's 6 topics listed here that came up in the last couple of meetings. So the first group is Africa group, then US, Canada, then relationships in the global South with non-aligned governments, whoever can speak to that. 4th, militarization of schools. I have an email from the person who couldn't report on that I can share. And then NATO, a climate killer, and NATO and violence against women, manipulation of women's agenda, and not following 1325. Each of these get 5 minutes. We'll start with the Africa Working Group, 5 minutes. Teresa, can you take that on?
Well, yeah. I see that we're up to 27 people. It's very good that we have so many women who are joining, but the unevenness of representation in the world as it is a bit disappointing. Quite a few people from the Africa Working Group who have been very active since Brussels in meeting regularly are not in this meeting. as far as I can tell. I'll look back at the list, but the people from Ghana, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, South Africa are not here. But we have met regularly, and our last meeting, I believe, was August 25th. We were all women in that meeting, I noted, and we talked about BRICS, and we talked about what's happening on the Africa continent in terms of war and in terms of the colonial powers like France and others who are still messing around in Africa. And so what we're excited about is the BRICS meeting, their 15th summit, which occurred in Johannesburg, South Africa. And the declaration from that summit is important, and I appreciate that Ula sent it out. I have circulated it widely on Facebook and through all the networks of Africans I know, because we think it's very important that Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa formed an alliance where they are committed to changing the world as it is. It is a direct challenge to NATO, and we should see it as such, because many more countries will join BRICS. Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Iran, all of the countries that are not in NATO, that are not aligned with the madness of endless war of NATO, will be joining BRICS. So we have to understand BRICS as a development in support of the global South in particular. So I will stop there. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer. But the Africa Working Group is a real working group, and we will continue to meet as we get ready for the 9th Pan-African Congress, where Africans are invited to send representatives, which is scheduled to be in Togo in the fall of 2024. So after we do the smackdown to no to NATO in July in DC, we'll be getting ready to go to Togo. Africa Working Group, over.
Thank you. Any questions? Any questions for what's happening with the Africa Working Group? None? All righty, so who can give a working group report for US Canada? Is there anyone here who can give that report for US Canada? I thought I saw someone from Canada on, but I can't find them now. Okay, we're gonna pass on that one for now. How about anyone who can speak to relations?
I'm from Canada.
Can you
Kim.
give an update on the Canada work group?
Well, we only met, I think we met once, unless I missed the most recent meeting because I've been on vacation the past week. But we met and we talked about doing a film this fall, and I suggested the Hiroshima film about, and the last I heard, she was,
You muted yourself.
sorry, yeah, I was just saying goodbye to somebody. So the last I heard, we were going to meet again and decide with the group if everybody was okay with doing that film, showing that film this fall as a possible activity. And I'd have to talk to Emily to find out what happened with that. I'm a little out of the loop recently. So that's maybe why she didn't pipe up, because I wasn't at the last meeting. I might not have been at the last meeting. I'm not sure when the last meeting was. We met before I left for vacation for sure.
Okay. Well, thanks for letting us know about that. Anyone can speak to relationships in the global South and non.
George, please don't just mechanically run through the agenda. I'm not sure who the person was who was speaking for the US-Canada working group, but that is a very well-developed working group that includes Ann Wright and a number of other people. And you and I, George, have gone to those meetings. And the person who is the coordinator of that group, I think her name is maybe Abby, but I think that it's a different report that I was expecting from the U.S.-Canada working group, the actual working group where you and I have met, that was active in Brussels, and that has had at least one meeting. And I think there's another meeting scheduled, but that report about a film showing doesn't reflect the political dynamics of the U.S.-Canada working group, as I recall it.
Is there anything you can add based on what you recall for folks to know about what's going on with the U.S.-Canada working group? I don't have information I can share. There's no one else from Canada here. Is there something you'd like to add?
Well, I think that since the people who are leading the U.S.-Canada working group are not here to report, I would not do such a thing as try to report for them. I reported on the Africa working group, which was my task.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm sorry, but I just want everyone to know that there is a real U.S.-Canada working group that has people who are politically active in it, and it is more than about a film showing.
Yes, thank you. Any other comments or questions before we move on? Okay, so this next one, relationships in the global South and non-aligned movements. Is there anyone who can speak to that? Claire? You're muted, Claire.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Yes, I spread our calls in the DiEM25 and progressive international networks. The problem I told you was it in July? We have no social media, but we spread the calls. About the BRICS, there was a meeting last week. Apart, yes, putting aside the usual blah blah about human rights and so on, what is chiefly interesting is the monetary and economic aspects. The new development bank is an alternative to the World Bank and to the IMF. It lends without austerity conditions and partially in local currency to avoid exchange rates to beneficiaries. But there are limits because the Chinese affairs world is involved with the dollar. There is little about non-alignment, except obviously they want to escape the Western hegemony. Yes, I think it's interesting to share the articles and the contact, of course, with people in the South, the global South. Thank you.
All right, Claire. Dragonia, did you have something you wanted to say?
I just wanted to say that, yes, we did meet in Brussels, but there was no formal meeting afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
This Italian woman, I forgot her name. I remember her face clearly. Took our email addresses, but never contacted us. So maybe we should sort of reinvigorate this
Yes.
idea. She was very much into it. So I believe it'll take a little bit longer for this group to take shape.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions? Oh, Ula?
Yeah, just Dragana, I can send the Italian woman's name so you can go contact her. You'll
Very
get it
good.
after the meeting, okay?
Oh,
And the other
thank
ones too.
Great.
That's excellent. So we need to
Patricia?
remember.
the Italian name of the journalist is Marinella Correggia. That
Yeah.
continuously she work with Africa, and I was in the group for the contact with the South, and I want to continue to the relations, especially with North Africa. Is important even for the group of I write just now to Teresa. It's important to confirm the contact with Khadija Riadi, because it is a really courageous woman. It is really difficult in North Africa to do politics in this manner. And me also, I'm interested. I want to. I have a contact with the in Africa. There is a 19 section of WILF. I'm in contact with the international president, and I want to improve all this, especially because I work for refugees, for African refugees. So I know really well what is the. I agree totally with the consideration of our invited Norma Nomazozzo. You remember the message that she launched during the workshop about the importance of the reparation, because the victims are always in immigration, malpaid, not paid, etc., etc. So I think it's extremely important to continue to work. And I want to re-speak with Marinella, that is always really, really busy, but I know that she's interested in the project. Thank you.
Thanks, Patricia. Ula?
Yes, on the June 15 meeting, there were a lot of African participants. Today I have put on the list all the ones that have participated in our meetings and have been speakers at the webinar. So that list is now perfect. But since there is this restriction of distributing the list, I cannot send it to all of you before I have asked the persons for the permission, and that I have done. It's finished now today. But
Great.
I could send to Patricia those names, but you have to use them carefully and say that you have received them from me because they have taken part in our Zoom meeting. So there you could get some contact still. And then I don't have to send anything to Dragana. You have Dragana's,
Yep.
do you, Patricia, do you have Dragana's email?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. So I send you those names, okay?
Very good. Teresa?
Well, if I could just speak frankly, Ula, I would appreciate it if we're allowed to self-organize as an Africa working group. And we really appreciate the support and participation of the International Peace Bureau in identifying Africans. Ernest, who is with the International Peace Bureau, is an important member of the Africa Working Group. And I think we as Africans can self-organize in a way that allows us to reach more people of African descent worldwide. And I did neglect to say that President Sylvie, the WILF International president, who had a very bad connection, but she participated in the last Africa Working Group call. And there are approximately 18 sections in Africa, WILF sections in Africa. And so we're talking to President Sylvie, the international president of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, based in Cameroon. We're talking with her about getting more of the Africa sections of WILF involved in this process. And we're due to have a meeting about NATO in the near future that will be a WILF-wide meeting So Patricia, I think, identified herself as WILF Italy. Patricia, are you the Patricia with the International Secretariat of WILF, or is that a different Patricia who's over human rights with the International Secretariat of WILF? Because I think it is important that WILF as a whole is more involved in this process of global women for peace, united against NATO. That is a real question, Patricia from Italy, WILF. If you could say if you're with the International Secretariat of WILF, or is that a different person?
You need to unmute. We can see you nodding your head, but Teresa may not be able to see that. So unmute Patricia and answer the question. You need to,
Yes,
okay. Go ahead.
No, yes, I can try, absolutely, I can try.
Are you with are you with the Secretariat in Human Rights?
I know Patrizia Scannella. Patrizia Scannella is the responsible
Okay.
Yes, yes.
So it's
Thank
a
you.
different Patricia.
It's a different Patricia,
Yes.
is what we hear.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So this morning there was an email from Christina Rancheria about
Ronchieri.
is she here?
Yes.
Cristina Ronchieri in Italian.
Okay, so is this Christina who's ready to report on militarization in schools?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, that looks like it says Dragenia.
Okay, I wrote.
Go ahead.
I wrote the email because at 4:30 I must leave the meeting. So now I am here. I can speak. So you read that okay, we are meeting on the 8th of September with our group. So we're not able now to give you a precise work plan for our activities, but in the meeting I think we'll explain the Italian women will explain how the Italian observatories works, and to choose together which part of work or which documents already done can be useful for us. So we will speak in the details how we work in Italy and in our observatory. For example, just to give you an example, we have a press office, a media office in our observatory. There are particularly 3 persons who organize the information, the documents to put in our website, in the Facebook, not Twitter, but Twitter only, even Twitter, yes, and Instagram too. And I think this organization is important to let people know the work and to contact more people. But apart of the press office, I wrote at the end of my email that to work better is very, very important in the group. There will be present women that work in the schools or in university, or that have got direct contacts with the organization who work in the schools or universities, because inside we can start to give information and to organize the didactics or information for students and the families too. So we will discuss about this, and we will see this is my opinion, which are the countries where at the moment we can work better, because we have direct contacts. We will start from that countries, I think. Anyway, after the 8th of September, we will give you more information, and we will give you, we will tell you how we decided to work.
Thank you so much. I think we've been joined by new people. If you're here for the first time, please raise your hand so that we can welcome you. Anyone here for the first time who recently joined? Or did anyone come on in the last 10 or 15 minutes who hasn't had a chance to introduce themselves? If you're new, please go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Cristina Figini. I'm Italian. I think we are a little bit invaded by Italians at this point, so many. And yeah, I'm part of the surgery, like Cristina Ronchieri, and she asked me to join this group as well. And I will participate to the meeting the 8th of September. And but anyway, I didn't want to interrupt you before, so I was waiting for her
Okay.
talk.
Your sound's a little muted. I have to work to hear you, but I could hear you. Thank you so much. I see Pippa, who joined recently, and Alessandra, you've been here, although I know that may not be the right name.
It's the other one.
Yeah, but I can only say what I can see. I'm not going to remember. So go ahead, and then Pippa can go since you're talking.
Can I go?
Yes.
Can I go?
Yes.
Okay, I take occasion to present myself because I'm hidden behind Alessandra, but I'm Paola Melchiori, part of this coming Women's Against Violence group. We are, and Alessandra will do the report, but I am part of the House of Women in Milano, and I joined you already in Brussels.
Okay,
and
great.
So I'm joining the group with Alessandra. I want to say take this occasion to say something. I think we need a more, I support what somebody said before. We need some organizational planning where we put together the regional aspect and the content aspect, because they are still mixed up. We have all the content aspect, the economic aspect, the BRICS. We have to discuss these BRICS, because inside the BRICS, it's not the south of the early BRICS, which are together now. It's Saudi Arabia. We have to have in the content some space where to discuss the issues, because we cannot do a newsletter or put out material without giving also ourselves the possibility to discuss what we are showing outside, which is the content aspect. And then the organizational, the regional cannot be the same as the organizational. I think we have to find a way to put the two together, which is a conceptual thing, what we want to show the others, the people whom we invite to join, and why and how. Why in terms of the content. I think we have to do something about that, because otherwise we keep mixing things. So I use this self-presentation to say that.
Thank you.
And I made, one thing about the groups, I sent a proposal for this, just rearranging a little our group proposal. When we send the proposal inside the group, we also send it to you. That is also part of the organization. Is the general secretariat, which could also take the proposals from the groups. We have to think of an organigram, I think, to give ourselves an order and work more easily. Sorry, that's it.
Okay, thank you. So Pippa, you're introducing yourself, and then Umbasa, and you really are introducing yourself. You're not taking 3 or 4 minutes to make a comment. So you're down to a minute. Thanks, Pippa.
Okay, greetings to all wherever you are. My name is Pippa Bartolotti. I am with UNAC, And as a subtext, I'm also on the outreach committee for the NATO conference and rally, which will be in Washington, D.C. in July 2024. I've popped something in the chat. That effect. Thank you.
Thank you, Pippa. And that topic will come up hopefully soon. Mbasa, can you unmute and introduce yourself?
Yes. Good afternoon, ladies. I am so sorry I joined you late. We've got something called in South Africa load shedding. So we had triple load shedding today, the whole day. It's only now that I've managed to get electricity. I'm still part of you. That's what I want to establish to you. I'm still part of you since I've been with you with the meetings that we've been always having. It's just that at the moment in the country, South Africa, we are busy preparing elections. As you know that I'm the member of the parliament, also a member of the women's political women's league in South Africa. So we have all these conferences right up right now. So if I'm not contributing anything, don't think I'm away from you, I'm with you. It's just that there's this other load work now that I have. Thank you very much.
And thank you for letting us know. We're glad you're here.
Okay.
Unless we have other comments, we will go to whoever can talk to us about NATO as a climate killer. See if I'm saying that correctly. I've got to look back what I wrote. NATO climate killer. Is that you, Nancy?
Maybe I can.
Okay, cool. You have 5 minutes.
Yes, my name is Lisa Taskin. I'm speaking here. Yes, people who just was talking to us is the last one who has reacted to my emails that I have sent, and she has sent a nice letter about her ideas, maybe. But ever since, and this was sent on in the end of July, and after that, no one in this group has commented it. But I'm still positive and thinking that somehow we will get to the work. And I think that there's no idea to read Pippa's letter and these mails I have sent earlier. But there are people who in principle are interested in this work, but everyone is busy and it has been really summertime and people have been also on holidays. This is maybe all I can say right now.
All right. Thanks for letting us know what's going on. Nancy, I see you've unmuted. Do you want to add something?
Yes, I'd like Lisa to put her email address in the chat, if you don't mind. I certainly would like to work on this. I've just been a bit preoccupied with a few other things, so I don't mean to leave you in the lurch, as they say. But let's communicate by email. Would that be fine with you?
Yeah, yeah. I think that I have sent you an email, but I'll send it to you right now.
Thank you very much.
I see Pippa and Patricia. Go ahead, Pippa. And Poppy.
Okay, just to say I have finished all my radiation and chemotherapy treatments and I'm feeling so much better and I'm ready to take on more. When last we spoke, I really wasn't ready to take on more. I have been preparing leaflets already for distribution. Certainly with climate and the US military in particular, as it is the largest killer. And I am fully prepared, Lisa and Nancy, to take your guidance and work on getting what we need together for discussion and to bring to maybe the next meeting. So please, send me what you need, and I have the capacity now to start dealing with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pippa. We're at the point where we really make sure our comments are succinct and on point, and not, thinking out loud with or having a chat with each other, because otherwise we'll be in trouble. So I've got Patricia, Paki, Ula, and Dragana. Patricia?
I just want to inform you that after Brussels, I rest in contact with all these people about Sardinia. You remember that I give a lot of materials to the two Euro parliamentarians, Claire Daly and Ozelem, about the problems in Sardinia. I invite the two representatives, and so now I'm monitoring the process, because I'm in contact with this organization in Sardinia, really affected by the military base. And even I know that Marilina Rakelveka, that was a person that speak with RIA about depleted uranium, that is publishing a book. And so, another point is that recently me and the other pacifists, together with the Yalana, the lawyers against the nuclear weapon, we are start a trial against the US base in Italy, North Italy, with nuclear weapons. So just sorry, Lisa, if at the moment I don't have the time to contact you, etc., because I use a lot of time to prepare 4 articles about the meeting of Brussels, and I returned just yesterday by my holiday, but all this is working. Thank you.
Thank you. Paki?
Yeah, hi, everybody. I'm with you, Pippa, just finishing the radiation and chemo and all of that jazz, and back in the swing of things. But I'm checking in to see about how many of us can get together in New York at the UN on the 17th of September with flyers to really raise this whole issue. I know Code Pink is doing a lot with the whole climate and militarism, but I think we have another voice. So if there are others of you who are coming to the UN on the 17th of September in New York City, let's find a time to get together to try to coordinate something. Does that sound like a plan?
There's a Code Pink staffer, Olivia, who's facilitating an anti-militarism hub for that Say No to Fossil Fuels March on September 17th. If you're planning to attend and be in New York, put your information in the chat so that it can be shared and Paki can have it. Ula and Dragonia?
Yeah, first of all, Pippa, could you maybe do the newsletter for us?
Right, now, sorry, in terms of newsletter, what exactly do you mean? What I missed the first hour of this meeting. We had guests last night, so yeah.
I'm not so sure, but I think that what we need is to get information, links to information that is important for our work, not explicitly the work of this group, but the work of every member, like the BRICS paper that you can use in the dialogues and in your work. And I think we have to remember that we are here on the basis of the declaration. We are against NATO, and in everything we are doing, that is what we are against. So when we have militarization in schools, it is because of NATO. When we have climate change, we have to say NATO has this and this much climate change, because other organizations are doing a lot on other subjects, and we have just to concentrate on centralization on NATO. It's NATO who is the big bastard. And for that, when I think it was the woman from Italy who said that we would need a secretariat. I think we can never have a secretariat. We are just a coalition of women who do our things against NATO. And if we could have a secretariat, it would be beautiful, but that money we will never have, I think. So we have to be very realistic. And I would hope that all the working groups would now head towards Washington. That's the next thing. We are heading towards Washington, and the workshops, if we have them, the webinar before that would be like a preparation for Washington. So Pippa, if we could think about it together maybe, and do it in a very simple form as a beginning, and then when somebody finds a better form or better ideas, they can present them. Is that okay?
I'll give it a go.
Okay.
Two things. First of all, you and I should have a separate chat about this, not on the main group, to sort out some headings.
And we would need
secondly,
somebody who has done a newsletter for somebody. Was it Simri? Are you here still, Simri?
I'm not sure.
We could.
Okay. I have done newsletters before.
Okay.
So it's but what I really need is a separate chat with you to make sure I'm on the right, thinking the same way you are. And also for everyone here to send me the briefest possible links and titles of what you're up to, because our group needs to know what everybody's doing, really. So nothing unnecessary, just bare facts, and I'll just make it into something. Obviously I can only do it in English, and I apologize for my shortcomings in the language department.
Okay.
Thank you, Pippa. Great.
Dragonia and Teresa, we're down to the last half hour. Let's not dawdle. Thank you, Ula.
Yep, sorry, I was late for the meeting, and this is our first meeting in a long time, and I haven't had the opportunity actually to convey the invitation. We have been invited. I represent Raising Peace Network in Australia. We always have a peace festival around the International Day of Peace, 21st of September. Cristina Ronchieri is already on a panel on Saturday morning on the 23rd, and that's separate. That's specific to the militarization in schools, university, etc., etc. But we, as a whole, as an entire group, have been invited to present a talk, webinar, whatever. We have a slot that can be moved a little bit around the time. I'll give you the time, on the 22nd of September, to talk about everything that we represent. And of course, the focus is the declaration and all the related work that we are trying to sort of maximize. Let's put it that way. And I think I wrote an email to Ula, George, and Anne, and I think the BRICS and the new membership, etc., is now making some changes, or it is likely to somehow bring a new balance to on the world stage. So the thing is, 7 to 8:30 p.m., and I calculated here, would be our slot on the 22nd of September. That works fine for Europe, but I'm not so sure that our American or sisters from North American continent or American continent, we don't see many South American women here. That was a beautiful webinar in Brussels, I mean, during that time. But I would really like to see this African group take part in this webinar. So we have to think fast, because they need information, and Australia is one day ahead of us. By the end of the weekend, is it something that we can do? I already see Ula to be there, George, Teresa, couple other women, just to talk in general and focus on the declaration. and the subgroups that we've created. So this is how we expand our attention. So it's like expanding and then coming back with new ideas, expanding and coming back, and to talk about where we are at right now.
Thank you, Tiganya. That's worth thinking about. Seriously. Teresa, and then Ula.
Well, George, I become more disturbed minute by minute that an extra half hour has been added to this already long meeting, which we were at 90 minutes, and just arbitrarily a half hour was added, turning it into a 2-hour meeting. And that speaks to the need to democratize this process so that there aren't just 2 or 3 individuals who seem to be saying what will happen and when, and then we end up not being real clear about what is happening, which is why I proposed a 5-year look at our work and what we could do, and particularly in the short term from now until July of 2024. And I really need us to get to that
Yes.
because I don't think I can stay on until 11. We've lost Emily. Other people have to go on because we're really all very busy people, George.
I know this.
And
I
so
said at
you
the
know
beginning
how
it would be
busy
2
I
hours.
am.
I know,
Yeah,
I did let folks know. And that
yeah,
looking at
but
the agenda,
George,
there was, yes, ma'am.
no, please don't talk over me while I'm talking, if you don't mind. But George, the point I'm making is that you made this decision to do a 2-hour meeting. Was it part of some leadership body that we're not aware of, that you just decided that we would make this a 2-hour meeting? And that is a serious question that in the name of democracy, I would like to have answered right
I looked
now.
at when I put the times on the agenda this morning, I saw that it was close to 2 hours for everything. Although the next agenda item that would take 5 minutes from reports, we may have to forego unless there is a pressing announcement or activity happening in the next 4 to 6 weeks for NATO and women and violence against women, because we haven't heard on that one. Then we go to strategic planning. In the context of strategic planning, we talk about next year in DC, and then we set the date for our next meeting. So is there something pressing? And yes, I made that decision on my own because I looked at the time and added it up. And I know from the past meetings we've had that this is not a group that is satisfied by not covering everything that's on the agenda. And if that's my mistake, thank you for forgiving me for that mistake. Or if you have to leave, you have
Well,
to leave.
George, excuse me, George, but the time you're taking now, I think is best used with us talking about a coordinating committee of some type, because people are bringing ideas like, now, can we do something with Australia? And we need to know by the end of the week. See, it's that sort of thing that speaks to what the person was saying earlier about organization. And she was talking about it in terms of regions but I heard it as we must better coordinate our work, which is what the strategic planning proposal is about, which I asked to have it placed on the agenda, I think, at the last meeting. And I appreciate that it's placed on the agenda. But this whole idea of who's going to do a newsletter, and Emily has made it quite clear that she is overburdened and overwhelmed. And I was just shocked when Nancy said, can you find somebody else to help you? No, we have to find the person to help Emily. And that was very clear to me when Emily was speaking. We must find her help. And we must look to Wilf, and we must look to our organizations to find help for this beautiful idea that Ula came up with. But we should be real clear. This is a new formation in the larger No to NATO movement, which has been going on for years. So we're the new kids on the block, so to speak. So let's not lose sight of that. And George, whenever you're ready for me to talk about why I propose a 5-year strategic process for this group to plan our work and to work our plan. Whenever you're ready for me to talk about that, I will talk about that.
Thanks so much. I just want to check in with whoever knows about NATO and violence against women. Is there anything in the next 4 to 6 weeks we need to know about?
Yeah.
And what's that?
Can I say something, Alessandra?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay. Our group has been now composed. It is made by 15 women. We started the work by mail with the 3 points that I sent to the list, on the basis of which the women decided to join the group. The 3 points are very briefly are one is the manipulation of NATO of the women agenda. In particular, they say they support women agenda and so on, but we see that the resolution 1325 is actually not implemented as it should be, according with a very low percentage of women in the negotiation, preventing conflicts and so on, according with the UN Women Report. Another point is to bring evidence of the violence of the NATO military body itself, and also the violence by soldiers against women. And third point is to change and to oppose the so-called new NATO narrative that says that they are becoming a global actor against women violence and for peace and security. So opposing this narrative, denouncing also the manipulation of the narrative that NATO is doing through using women. So these 3 points very shortly, but there was already several women who sent, also Paula told it, who sent proposals, suggestions, and to go ahead with the discussion. And we need, and we will do, we have the first meeting online by the mid of September, I think. In the few next days, or maybe tonight, I will send the proposal, or maybe making a doodle to check what is the best date and time for this first meeting. Stop.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Hopefully not to feel rushed, but we're now going to look at 5-year strategy chart. Teresa will take us through this, and we will focus on the next 12 months on the chart. So here we go. This is the short term, Teresa, that I've got on the screen.
Close the windows.
I close.
Yo, you close them?
We need people to mute themselves who are
I've
not
muted
talking.
everybody who isn't talking.
Oh, okay. Well, George, what would be very helpful is I will explain in the spirit of full disclosure that George Friday and I work closely together as lifetime members and board members of the Southern Anti-Racism Network, a small organization that is celebrating its 25th anniversary starting this year. And we pride ourselves on thinking long-term and strategically. And George and I have been working closely together on a number of strategic plans over the last few years. And I propose that Global Women for Peace United think strategically because NATO is already planning 20 years, 30 years out. And if we want to do away with NATO, we have to have more of a long view. It's not going to happen this year. It's not going to happen in July 2024 that they just suddenly go away. So this idea is to plan what we can do for at least 5 years with a final goal of no more expansion of NATO in the 5 years. And if we can build enough power, we might be able for NATO to say, with the entry of BRICS, we need to do something different, but we will see. So George, if you could read the heading across the chart so that everyone has a sense of how we are thinking in a 5-year plan about strategic planning.
Okay.
Number one, strategic planning always starts with setting goals. Where do we want to be by when? So, and basically, the strategy is how do we get there? And so, George, if you could read the headings across the top, and then we can focus in on the short term.
Okay. We've got goals, partners and allies, resources, human resources, publications, videos, activities, and strategic objectives.
Thank you, George. Those are just kind of, it's like a template that I use. Now, in the short term, George, if you could help me because I'm on my phone, George and I discussed a proposal for some short-term goals. So, George, if you could just read across the chart, not everything, but read the goals and the partners and the strategic objectives in the short term. And then we can talk a little bit about what activities we already know that will happen between now and July of 2024. That's the short term. It's basically 1 year. August 2023 to July 2024. Thank you, George.
Sure. So by July 2024, our goal is to have 1,000 additional declaration signatures. Our goal is to have tens of thousands gather in DC to protest NATO's 75th anniversary. Our partners and allies, we've got Code Pink, the International Peace Bureau, Peace Action, Southern Anti-Racism Network, Veterans for Peace, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, and World Beyond War. Our strategic objectives by July 2024 is that the declaration has over 1,000 signatures, that should be over 2,000 signatures, and relationships with activist organizers in sectors affected by NATO, climate, human rights, civil liberties, economic justice are all solidified so that we're broadening who is helping us do this work and who our partners are. There you go, Teresa.
Thank you, George. And so people, I assume, have been sent the chart. If not, George, they should receive at least the short term, not to overwhelm people, because some of this stuff gets repeated in the midterm and in the final phase of the 5-year plan. It's 2-year blocks and then 2-year blocks after this first year. And so something we've been starting, like in August, the Southern Anti-Racism Network organized a Northeast Solidarity Tour, UN Decade, Reparations, No to NATO. And the No to NATO part was really lifted up because the Wolf branches in DC, in Philadelphia, and in Boston embraced the tour and the purpose of the tour. So there will be a follow-up tour October 17th through the 23rd to those same places, and including Providence, Rhode Island, to also say, will you mobilize to DC for July 2024 to say no to NATO? And these will be labor groups, community groups, etc., just to give you a sense of the chart being simply an outline for the work that must be done in the way of activities. So we list some of the activities, but I don't think the chart can be big enough for the many activities that will be done throughout Europe and all the other continents around the world. But at least this gives you an idea with this chart of what should go in. So there may be an Africa chart in terms of regions. So there may be regions around, and when we merge the various regions, we will see that it is much, much bigger than what we have now, which is just an idea and actually just a proposal to start thinking about strategic planning and long-term, because NATO celebrating its 75 years is not going to go away in a year, or frankly, even 5 years. We have to work very hard. Yeah.
There are 2 questions and we have 8 minutes. So can we take the questions, or is there more you want to say before we take the questions?
Well, I think, George, I know that you're very mechanical about these things. But George, I understand you set this up as a 2-hour meeting arbitrarily, but all of the time that we spent listening to folks with various ideas, this, for me, is the most significant thing, is that we plan our work and work our plan. So if we can get agreement from people, if we go over 5 minutes or so for the people who want to stay, because quite frankly, this is not a full group activity. What really has to happen, just to be quite frank, is there has to be a strategy team. And so that is a component that has to come together. And some of the people who need to be on that strategy team who are not in this meeting, and they should be people representing all of the partners listed. And I hear Pippa, who is saying list UNAC as a partner, and I think you most certainly should do that, George. We should list UNAC as a partner. And so therefore we know who the people are who are eventually gonna make up the strategy team if there's an agreement of the whole group that a strategy is something that we can embrace as a whole group. So I think the first thing is, yes, answer the questions, but also hear if there are any objections to this idea of strategic planning. We need to hear the objections because, as you know, George, we go by consensus. So if there are any blocking concerns or objections, we can't go forward. So, George, you have the meeting from this point, and I'll answer any questions you would like me to answer. George, it's your meeting.
Thank you. I just wondered if you were ready for us to go to that stage. So let's answer questions and then find out what the will of the body is in terms of the strategic planning. Pippa and then Ula.
Thank you. I'd like to have a copy of this planning document to study it. I feel I can't just think yes or no on the hoof, as it were. So please, can we be copied into this document?
This will be sent out with the recording to everyone who registered.
Thank you.
Ula?
Yes, I think it's very good with strategic planning, and I hope we stick to 12 months because we have not the capacities to do so much. But I still think that this group has been so great, and we succeeded in doing something in Brussels due to the fact that everybody could have ideas, and I think also it's very important that we let all the local projects bloom, and if Dragana does something in Australia, it's absolutely fantastic, and I wish that everybody would take the initiative to do something on a local basis, because we cannot coordinate everything. We don't have the capacity. So all local and regional events should be really welcomed. And then I would say that the same problem as we had with Brussels, it will be difficult to get people overseas because it's very expensive. So as it was in Brussels, it was mostly European women there, and the other ones joined by webinars. And I think there will not be hundreds of European women flying over because it's very costly. So we have to be very realistic. But there are lots of groups in the US working for the Washington event. So it's not only we, luckily. Thank you.
Okay. And in terms of the 5-year plan, it is the 5-year plan. And yes, our work will be focused on the next 12 months, but we are thinking about how are those 12 months getting us to where we want to be in 2028. And if we're not thinking about 2028, while we're doing that, we may not be on track. Okay.
Well, George, a strategic plan can be 18 months, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I came up with the 5-year idea, but it's not in stone. And I hear Ula saying she doesn't want to think beyond the short term. She's only thinking, let's get to July, because it's how it is commonplace that people think in event-oriented terms. So what's the next event? And so I don't think in those terms. And I understand it if this group wants to think in terms of, can we get to the next activity or the next event? So I need to hear, because I know that I can get with Ann Wright and I can get with some other people in the US, and we can talk about at least the short term of how we get to DC in a big way in July of 2024. So I'm willing to limit the conversation to that for now. But what I need to hear from Ula, Nancy, and other folks identified as leaders in this group, if there are any objections to pursuing a strategy that is multi-year. That is the question I am asking of Ula, Nancy, and any others who want to respond.
Okay, you got a thumbs up from Dragonia. I meant to mention earlier that World Beyond War and David Swanson has started doing planning meetings around next July. we've got a hand with Ellen and then Ula. Go ahead, Ellen.
Okay. I was very pleased to see the strategic plan that Teresa developed, because although I'm not a core member and certainly not in the leading planning of anything here, I was so impressed with the this past July's Vilnius and Brussels work. And then the following articles that came out from Finland, Denmark, and Germany. They just were so remarkable, some of the work and groundwork that's been done for DC. And that I get the feeling that it could be very, very dispersed. You know, when you get to the US and you get to the peace movement, it's kind of a very eclectic Peace Now group that could be anything from trans to climate to just an infinite number of issues that come up within our larger umbrella peace activities. And NATO is not always foremost by any means, but I think that this group and what you've accomplished so far should be built on. So all I was going to do is propose under the umbrella of Teresa's strategic plan that people meet people from this group that have really put themselves out and really have excellent connections in Europe and Africa, put themselves out to talk with the key organizers, people who are really excited and want to lead in this DC July 24, and that we have a meeting. It probably wouldn't be me, but it would be people in this group that could meet. And Teresa's already started this with her tour. It sounds like very successful reparations tour. I'm just sorry I couldn't be there when she was in Boston. But I think that a meeting between the US and this group could be very useful for what happens in DC, some of the more focused activities, because we in the States can be very eclectic and go, but maybe you feel the same about your continental approach. Anyway, I've said this to Nancy and Packy when we had the New England retreat. It was very interesting, and I just said, you know, maybe we should have a meeting. The Women United Against NATO with some of the peace groups in the state. So all I'm doing is bringing it up as a topic, and I hope people will find a way to maybe have a meeting. That's all. To do the groundwork. We should build on what happened in 23 for 24. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely, without a doubt. Ula.
First of all, when we started this process in March last year, I thought it would be ended by Brussels. I never thought it would go on forever and ever, and I'm so glad it does, because that shows that we are needed, that it didn't end in Brussels, that we are going on. So that is why I would say to Teresa, I have nothing against 100 years plans, but our main task now is to make a success in Washington. And then we plan the next step. And it's good to plan all the time, but in the limits of our capacities. And then I would say to Ellen that you said the leading group. There are no leaders in this group. We are all leaders. If you want to lead your project, you just lead it against NATO. That is the main purpose, because that makes us strong. That we don't have leaders. We are all leaders. And I would like to say that IPB, yeah.
Excuse me, because I really do have to go, and I totally disagree with an anti-leadership approach to organization, Ula. I don't agree with you. You are clearly the leader. You are the person who came up with a big idea. You speak clearly as the voice of the group, whether you intend to or not. It's what you do. And I have applauded you for coming up with this big idea. But what I would urge you to do, Ula, is realize that Christine and the other people in the international No to NATO movement have been doing this for some time. And so Global Women for Peace United Against NATO is a new formation. We're in it for the long haul, even though you thought it was just getting to Brussels and an event. Maybe you thought that initially, but clearly those of us who are part of the larger international No to NATO movement knew that this big idea from you, Ula, is so important that we can advance it in the concept and in the spirit of feminist peacemaking. There is nothing like it happening anywhere in the world with this kind of energy in feminist peacemaking. We have Wilf, we have Cold Pete, but this unites all of us. So the Global Women for Peace United is truly a big idea, and it begs for leadership, coordination, and strategic planning. And I say, yes, we have a lot to think about in the short term, Ula, but your big idea is way bigger than you were thinking about it initially. And I see how big it is, and I want to see it build capacity. In the left, I find that people are always talking about what they can't do rather than what they can do. Dennis Brutus, the poet from South Africa, he said those words to me many years ago before he transitioned. He said, why is it that a little group I was in talks more about what they can't do than what they can do? And I have lived my life from that moment on those words. Let's build capacity to do more. So George, it's 7 minutes over your stopping time, and somebody else may want to say something, but I want my viewpoint to be clear. And I agree, Pippa, the reason for strategic planning is so that you can make adjustments based on what you plan to do. So as different things occur, like the BRICS declaration being announced, is a very big deal. It's a very big deal. So when I saw the declaration from BRICS and I watched the whole thing, I watched Russia speak, I watched the head of South Africa speak, I watched the head of Brazil speak, so I know what they're saying and what they're thinking. I was in the conference in Johannesburg because it was completely open. So I understand, Pippa, that these new things that come up like BRICS can help us, and BRICS most certainly helps us. So I'm ready to be around people who have some experience with thinking strategically so that we can plan our work and work our plan. That is who I am, Ula. And so I embrace anyone who wants to be a part of the thinking. I know that George and I will continue to be a part of the thinking in our small organization called the Southern Anti-Racism Network. We're small, but we're bold and we're ambitious. So that's who we are. And so we will build capacity. The tour, Northeast tour, Southeast tour, Midwest tour, West tour. This little small organization is doing these tours based on our relationships in all parts of the country, not just in the U.S. South. So I just want you to understand that capacity can be built. And that's what I'm kind of known for doing, Ula. Let's think big and let's do big. That's what what I'm calling for, Ula. Yeah, we could build capacity. Your big idea, I have joined on to it, and I just think it's the most wonderful thing in the world. Global Women for Peace United Against NATO. I am all the way in, Ula. When you came up with the idea, I was like, wow. And I'm all the way in, Ula. I'm one of your followers, Ula. So you are a leader, and I'm one of your followers. So let's keep going. Let's keep going.
All right.
Let's keep going, but we all use our capacities, because everyone has a capacity, and that we have to use. That's it. And I just wanted to finish by saying that IPB is planning to have some kind of run-up things for Washington. So we will all be invited, I hope. I will work for that. So we just have to work. Everybody uses her capacity. Thank you.
Can we look at calendars to set a next meeting? And if someone has something they need to say before we adjourn, or something you want to add to the chat before we close, everyone will get the chat, the recording, and the strategic plan as it is now.
Well, George, I think I want to connect with Pippa. So, I'm on my phone. So if Pippa can drop her contact info in the chat, I would appreciate it. I already know how to get in touch with Ann Wright and Medea and some of the other forces in the U.S. But I think we need to have a U.S. chat. And I'm remembering that at the U.S.-Canada meeting, when I raised the issue of getting the labor movement involved in No to NATO in July, Ann Wright said yes. So I'm going to be working on that, since I was a union organizer for many years and lots of labor contacts. So how many labor folks can we get to sign on? So those are some of the other strategic things that are going on. I wanted to just drop out in the mix, but it's going to be important that the U.S. and Canada coordinate, because we have the potential of getting many, many, many folks to DC, just based on the geography. And so if I could just be in touch with Pippa as part of her outreach team, that would be great. And let's look at dates, because I think we do need to meet in September. And I would say my preference would be before September 17th to hear how the UN mobilization is going. That would be my preference based on what Pocky described. I had not heard about that activity. So that's just my proposal. Can we meet before September 17th?
Well, September 15th is that Friday. Looking around, I don't see Ann. I think Ann left us.
We've been meeting on Thursdays usually. So September 14th, is that a problem for you, George?
No, it's not. So that's about 3 weeks away. Is September 14th okay with people? Same time?
I'm unable to attend. That's fine, but that's only me.
Can someone from your organization attend?
No.
No. Is it the date or the time, Triconia?
Dragana. It's I'll be traveling during that week and then working towards, but we haven't decided here about Global Women during the Raising Peace Festival. It's not an Australian event. It's just happening under the umbrella of Raising.
Okay.
Well, when is it? What's the date of it, Triconia?
So, yeah, I did explain and I asked for your input, but I will repeat. It is from 7 p.m. in Sydney time till 8:30 p.m., which is 11 in Europe.
On what date?
22nd of September. It's the day after the International Day of Peace, which it's a UN day. It's September 21. So the following day, we were invited to present as a group and talk about our work, our achievements, and our goals, our plans, and promote our declaration. That's the whole idea. And the time, which I've just given you, can be moved in any direction to accommodate different time zones. That's always a problem.
Well, I saw it as a request of ULA, actually, and so I wasn't thinking of being a part of that. So I think ULA most certainly should represent us if she's available.
It's all of us. It's not ULA representing us. There is nobody else. It's us talking. So the idea was definitely cannot be without ULA, couple other women, and African group.
Right. I remember you're mentioning the African working group.
Yes, African group. I think in the light of BRICS and all the development, it's very important to be present there and talk. And I've seen comments here, and that was what the invitation was about. So can you work out what time in the US is 7 p.m. Sydney time? It's still a day before. So I can make a request to move it sooner.
Well, it was my understanding that you needed to know an answer very soon, and we can communicate via email with most of the folks in the Africa Working Group. But what is your deadline for knowing? Because I think with us spread out around the world, we can, I don't mind getting up at 3 a.m. in the morning or whatever time. So whatever time it is in Africa or most of Africa, we would go with that time for the Africans who could be present. If it's an open invitation, I didn't understand it to be that open, but it would be very important that the person from South Africa, who is a former member of the South African Parliament, and she's kind of our group expert on BRICS, and I think she may have been in Johannesburg, but she would absolutely need to be there. So we can get in touch with her based on the time that you described, and we can see if we can. But it would be an honor to participate. I'm sorry, I didn't quite get the invitation, but yes, let us talk among ourselves over the next couple of days via email, but I'm sure whatever time it is, it will be okay, since you've already indicated the time in Georgia. I guess you have that because it's in the recording, and we can just find out what time it is in South Africa, in Ghana, in Cameroon, and the other places, and we will go with that time that they're okay with.
So the focus is global women united against NATO, and then all other work that was inspired by let's say, lead up to the Brussels meeting. Let's put it that way, as simple as that, and showcase and talk more about the declaration, and then BRICS would be like the sub sort of theme. And it's us, it's not nobody, it's not anyone else. We are invited to talk about ourselves. Now let's just fix the time that suits most of us the best.
Well, let me make sure I understand. We're not speaking to a conference. It's just for us to talk among ourselves.
No. In some way, that's talking amongst ourselves, but let's imagine a crowd that you want to talk to the world, talking to the world, because we don't know who will register. It will be entirely online. Am I making this clear?
I understand.
How do we want to? This is the first time that we will talking to some unknown people, not women only, about us, our work, and what our goals are. So this will be the first test in our strategic planning. Can we make ourselves clear to the rest of the world? The fact that it's organized in Australia has actually little to do with Australia per se. Of course, there will be more people registered from Australia because of the time slot, because of the advertising, etc., etc. But we do hope to have people, women in particular, from all over the world, but men as well. It is important to talk about our declaration to whoever wants to listen.
Oh, Dragana, so can we call this a webinar?
Yes, it's a webinar.
And I encourage y'all to communicate by email offline because this is way too long to talk. Vera, I see that your hand is up. I'm not going to ignore you. I invite anyone else to facilitate the September 14th meeting. Seriously. So think about it. It's a lot. Vera?
Yes, so I would like to ask Dragana that please write to all of us an email, what you have just said, because we can be ready only in that way if you know exactly what you just have said. But we heard it once, but we have to read it and prepare for it to be ready for this date.
Okay.
All right.
So please help us with this. And then when will be the next meeting of our group?
This body right now, September 14th at the same time as today. And seriously, anyone else is invited to facilitate. And if when I get the information out, sending out the recording and whatnot, if a lot of people come back that September 14th doesn't work, then I'll try to send out a doodle poll to find a date in September early enough to accommodate the dates that are happening and the events that are already planned for September. All righty, unless someone is really, really moved to say something else, God knows how could you possibly be, we're out. Goodbye, humans.
No, I'm not waving.
Oh.
I would like to say that please know about it, that WILF, the European WILF organizations, some representatives will come to Budapest because WILF Hungarian will be formulated. We hope that it will be formulated on the 29th, 30th and of September and the 1st of October. So keep in mind that on these 3 days we will be working on this. And after this event, of course, we will report you what happened on these 3 days with the Hungarian women and the invited other European women. Here is Patricia also, who is organizing this. And so we will see what is going to be formulated in this very pro-NATO region of ours and what's going to happen. So we are fighting against the hurricane of propaganda and all such things, but we are strong as always, Ulla says to us. Okay, that was the little notice I had to say.
Good.
Okay.
Wonderful.
All right. Thanks.
Excellent.
Take
Welcome
care.
to WILF.
Talk to you next time. Bye. Oh, Lordy.